to do something that was against what my community members wanted, which was for me to leave the US. And I remember the first days of my hike, I said, the trees have never hurt me. And that's why I really like the woods. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about today and preparing for it, to give you a sense. So the description of the talk was, what do KFC, a diamond ring, and shoeboxes have in common? And those are all mundane experiences of my life in slavery that people don't think about when they think about me talking about slavery. And I thought this was going to be easier to talk about. It wasn't. It was very difficult to prepare. And part of it was because I haven't talked this intimately in a long time. I feel like I'm inviting you into something, and while that used to be easier for me, I'm finding that part of my free life is getting used to more privacy. So when I first started coming out as a survivor of slavery, I was telling all. I was talking about the details. I really needed everybody to know it. And that's important, and there are ways for me to share that, but now I'm really needing people to know other parts of me. So what I'm sharing today, I still want people to know it, but what I find interesting is that it's because I wanted them to be known back then. So in some ways you're participating in my recovery process because I really wanted people to understand some of these mundane things and how they impacted me back then. So today I was up at 5:30, which is pretty typical for me, but actually it's typical because it's, the clock's changing, so I'm usually up about 5:30. On bad sleep nights, it's about 4:30. I was anxious about this talk. I finished my presentation. Then I got back in bed, and I just had this feeling inside that I can't quite describe, but it's pretty much there most mornings of both I'm okay and I also could cry all day. And that's pretty much part of freedom after slavery for me. 12 years out, there's still a lot to grieve, especially because my enslavement was that my parents sold me in the US. I was born there in the commercial sex industry, and that was on the tales of sexual abuse at home and physical abuse at home. So for me, every day is about finding a purpose. And today is a little bit about showing you these two people. So this is a 3D action figure of myself. So there's this, Uniqlo is a Japanese store, and one of my old students worked in marketing for them, and they were doing these 3D models. So you stand in this, kind of like at the airport where they go around and they scan you, and then they produce this 3D image. But I found it pretty cool for me that within a week it broke. Because, so these are all clothes that they gave me. I still have some of it, and yet it felt a little bit weird to be an action figure. It felt weird to be given all this free clothing when I didn't really need it, but I was promoting this brand that I know nothing about, and I'm supposed to be celebrated as a community leader, but it was really because I just do this one student. And at the time, I didn't realize the extent to which I felt like I had to keep this image up. I mean, coming here to the UK has been a lot about breaking this idea of perfection. And I don't consider myself a perfectionist. I have typos on things and I don't always get things right, but I hold myself to a pretty insane standard of being human, or inhuman, of my morals, my ethics, my integrity. And so I keep this in my flat sort of as a reminder that I am both broken and okay at the same time. This is me right before I'm gonna drive to my Yosemite hike, and I love this me. And this is the most whole I have felt, so I find it also interesting that I feel most whole not in nice clothing. I wore basically the same outfit for 3 weeks. I did wash it, and with biodegradable soap, not near the water streams. And I want people to think about survivors of slavery as just regular people. So lots of things that go on around issues of slavery, you think of, oh, those people, but hopefully what we're doing is creating a world where survivors can be regular people, just like we all are. Okay, so these are the 6 things that I kind of want to tackle, and if I get through them, I get through them. If not, I won't. So this is one of my shoe boxes. So Anu is the brand of hiking shoe that I wore. I used to have about 6 of these in my house. And now when I moved here, I narrowed it down to 1. It's bulging. When I was little and being sold by my parents, I started saving things because no one was putting things on refrigerators, no one was keeping baby books, no one was mirroring and reflecting me. So I thought I'd just pull out some random things and talk about them. Yes. Okay, so these are 2 art pieces from 2 fellow survivors. This was the first retreat I went on with survivor leaders in the US. We were connecting online across the country, and an NGO made space and money for us to do a retreat in Southern California. It was very nice. And I remember this was very important because I told people that I used to collect rocks. So outside the house that I was enslaved in, or one of them, there's these quartz rocks sort of surrounding these rose bushes. And I would sit there and I would collect them and I would talk to them. And I'd actually put them in shoe boxes. And I would talk to them about how special they were. And then my mom would dump them out because she thought it was stupid. And then I would do it again, and she would dump them out. And I would do it again, and she would dump them out. So eventually I stopped collecting them. And I told this story to these fellow survivors, and they celebrated that in a way that I didn't expect. They celebrated, so they drew me these pictures saying, you get to have rocks again if you'd like. And it was mind-blowing because I still didn't realize how much I felt like I wasn't allowed to. I thought, well, that's silly. And so this helped me start a new rock collection. Let's see what else is here. Aha. This is my Robin Hood Half Marathon medal. I ran the Robin Hood Half about a week after moving here last year. These are loads of cards, basically birthday cards. Oh, this is, well, I won't out that person. That was a donation from somebody to, my old boss created a fellowship at my old university, and someone donated, and I kept the cards that said, so-and-so's donated. This says Mighty, and there's a Min somewhere. So my old interns used to call me Mighty Min, so I kept that. Oh yeah, photos from high school. So basically what I would do pretty much every year growing up, and will have to do again, is I would try and keep about 3 shoe boxes, because when I got to more shoe boxes, my mom would throw them out. So I would pare them down into as little as possible. And I remember the process of getting this down to 1. It was really difficult because I had to really think about, what do these things mean to me? And it's partially a reminder of who I was and who I am, but it's also my version, I guess, of kids' blankies or stuffed animals that they carry around forever. These are things that help me remember that I was always a person despite what was going on. So that's shoe boxes. This next photo, so that's a picture that I took. Does it look familiar to anybody? Where is it from? San Francisco. Yes, that's actually a photo of where the Full House TV series used to go on, and it's a place you can visit in San Francisco. Full House is it was a family show, and it was a single dad with 3 daughters and had 2 other uncles. His friends live in the house. And TV shows were really where I got some of my ideas of what I thought freedom was. So I watched a lot of TV when I was in the house and not allowed to leave. I watched TV at my mom's nail salon where I had to work as well. And shows like these really taught me that there was something else. So people often think, will ask me, well, how you would never guess that you're someone who went through slavery. How do you get around and know how to do things? Well, part of it is because I got some semblance of what other people were doing, what life outside looked like. I didn't think I had access to it, but I could certainly pretend what I was supposed to do, right? So I understood about family dinners. I understood about sibling rivalry, even though I didn't have a relationship with my brother. So for me, simple TV shows that students will reflect back on in the 80s, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, or Family Matters, or all these other shows have a different place for me because it was the place that I learned about of course it's a TV show, so it's not real world, but to me, it was more real than what my life was. And it was also the only way I could feel normal because it was something that I could talk about instead of talking about my trauma when going to school. Also, this is San Francisco. Even though I lived an hour away from it, lots of kids would go, and I actually had no idea, kind of in relationship to where I lived, where it was, which is about only an hour away from where my parents lived. Oh. Okay, Kentucky Fried Chicken. So this is a map of my elementary school. So in the U.S., elementary is grades K through 5 or reception through 5. This is in the same town. Mountain View is where the NASA Ames Research Center is. And then if you go that way, that's Stanford University. And then now, when I was a kid, this wasn't there, but now the Facebook headquarters is in this town. So you imagine it was quite a wealthy town. My mom had a nail salon. She is a Vietnamese refugee that went to the U.S. in 1980, so after the war in Vietnam ended, and slowly worked her way to own a nail salon there. So my mom owned a small business that was, I had to work there. And then this city, Mountain View, is about 45-minute drive on the motorway to San Jose where I lived. So when I would go to school, I'd have to go straight to my mother's nail salon before and after and work there. This nail salon is also a place where my mother sold me out of. She'd have people call and meet me there and take me and abuse me. And the reason why KFC is a place that I hate is because it's not real chicken, and because it would always be sort of a signal that I was getting closer to the nail salon. And then there's a Jack in the Box. Both Jack in the Box and KFC were places that my mom would sometimes stop off and buy food for us, my brother and me, to eat after school, even if I wasn't hungry. And so I also hate KFC because that was basically where I learned how to self-soothe through food. Whether or not I was hungry, it was something to keep my mind off of what was going on. Also, this is really silly, but I remember when KFC was advertising like the family bucket, the big bucket of chicken, and it became a thing, and friends and families were buying these family buckets, and it was so stark to me that I didn't have a family that would actually eat together and feel like a family. So I don't like KFC. And I see it everywhere, and it really, I don't know why, but it still kind of has this memory for me, I guess I do know why, of sort of this one really bad food that I was forced to eat, 2, coping instead of being able to deal what was going on, and 3, not really. So there's lots of negative associations. And I guess 4, it was the last she put lots of stickers on it, I think of unicorns and My Little Ponies, and it just completely warmed my heart because I had never um, really felt celebrated and surprised the way she did. She knew that this talk was really important to me, and she just did a lot to make me feel special. And as my godson's mom, we've become family. And so it was such a moment of, wow, maybe I do have a place because during my master's program, I basically spent every night of the week in a self-help group or at therapy or working to pay my own way. And so I couldn't hang out with people. And when I was with people, I had a lot going on. And so the fact that she said it was too much sort of affirmed my fears about my trauma being too much for people. So on graduation day, I actually had no one to sit by. No one had asked me to sit by them, and I thought, wow, this is, like elementary school or something. But I bought myself flowers and this card because I needed to remind myself about there's a reason why I chose to not spend time with those people, and I couldn't have the same life that they had. I was choosing to do therapy or self-help groups most nights a week, and that was a worthy sacrifice for me, and that's why I can be here today, is because I spent all that time there. Now I'm more able to have friends, and then I wasn't, and that's a loss that I grieve. But I also forgot that one of the reasons why I celebrate this now is that I can buy myself flowers. And this card that I wrote is from me to me, and I sign it as your new mom. And a lot of my losses around never having had a mom. And so on really important days now, I write cards to myself as if it was the mom that I wanted. So a card that I would want my own mom to write me. And this is basically to help me acknowledge that that loss is going to be there, that I will always want a mom at important events, but that I am a better mom to myself than my mom has ever been. And so now when I buy myself flowers, I still feel a little bit guilty because it's an expense that grad students shouldn't spend money on, and also that it's silly to buy yourself flowers. But I look back and think about this time, and it's something that I take from my friend who said she couldn't be my friend anymore. She actually bought herself flowers, and it's a way to remind myself that even though we aren't friends anymore, I can still take from people good things and move forward with them. So that seems to me like a mundane thing, just flowers and a card, but now has become a tradition for me as much as I can. So with that, I think the only last thing I want to share is a quote from myself, which is, I believe that giving creates more love, not less. I love so that I can be loving. I love because my humanity depends on it. Once I gave this talk, once I gave a talk and I shared quite a lot about my trauma, and I read a poem that was more detailed about my trauma, and afterwards somebody in the audience said to me, I don't know how you love somebody more than you love yourself. I've never actually seen someone do that. And I said, that's not possible. I don't love other people more than I love myself. And we got into this argument about it. And in an email, I wrote this to him, and it's something that I hold really dear to me. Whether or not who's right on whether I love people more than I love myself, what I do know is that I believe that giving creates more love. And so part of that giving is sharing our stories. I think few people will go out and think that there's anything to offer in sharing their stories, but I think it's actually really, really important. And not just people like me who've been through slavery, but I think when I've heard stories from people who don't think that there's anything to share, it's actually a gift to me, because I don't know about life in childhood without the trauma, and I'm really curious about what that might be like. So I think sharing is part of giving, sharing your own stories, and that it creates more love. We find love, especially in these difficult times, not just through pain, but through our shared experiences, right? So knowing what it's like to be in the queue for the bus and miss it, or all kinds And I love because my community depends on it, especially in these times, as an American, you all are probably hearing the craziness that's going on. It's really painful and easy, I think, to turn and become hateful, and I certainly have a lot of reasons to be hateful towards society and people. But for me, once that happens in my community, has diminished. So I hope that for each of you, one of the things that you learn about modern slavery is that now we're trying to do something different where we integrate survivors of slavery into our society in a better way. Previous forms of slavery, we didn't abolish it actually, and we didn't integrate people into society. That's why we're seeing lots of racism now. We're seeing people who have multiple generations of poverty. And so I hope that in this next phase of anti-slavery work, we integrate survivors of slavery into our communities as people who love and want to be loved just like each of you. And with that, I'll leave it there.
Wow, yeah, thank you, Min. We've got some time now for a Q&A. So I'm going to ask the first question and then I'll open it up. Min, you are the Executive Director of the Survivor Alliance. Please could you tell us what that looks like?
Yeah, so the Survivor Alliance, the website's there, is an NGO that to training future researchers, and on and on and on. And then we are also supporting survivors' development of communities because you don't want your social worker to be the one that brings you soup when you're sick or to go to your graduation as the only person you have. You want community, right? So survivors need to not rely on NGOs, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean, we all want family and community. So we're supporting survivors and building their own communities to support one another.
Any more questions?
Thank you. It's a very touching talk, and I just want to ask you, without probing in any detail, maybe you could generalise it by talking about other survivors. Is there a great benefit in having some legal process against the perpetrators, looking for justice, or you come from a country that is heavily litigious and there's compensation and things like that? Is this a benefit, or does it just keep the wounds going for longer?
Yeah, that's I'm just reflecting on my response to your question because then in previous times that question used to bother me. But part of it is now I can speak about it a little bit more frankly. I'm happy to share it. My personal answer, which is, I think there can be a benefit to it. I did pursue it, but unfortunately, the statute of limitations is quite short, especially for severe types of trauma. It's a grueling process, and so by the time I got to it, it had been too much time had passed from the incidences. So I basically have to fight many, many years of statutory law. Though the first parts of exiting, I did not think it would be useful. I thought it was going to be more traumatic. I wanted to focus more on moving on than on prosecuting them because nothing would, even prosecuting them wouldn't have changed what happened. However, what I came to was that I understand the benefit of having an institution of society say, yes, this did happen to you, and yes, those people did it, and yes, you deserve X amount of dollars in restitution. And that's what I hear is useful. Is there's a procedural justice, there's a little bit of a public apology that comes from that. But unfortunately, the way our justice systems, even in America, work is that the victims are treated more like criminals to start, so it's usually guilty until proven innocent, rather than the other way around, and it causes more harm than is seen to benefit.
Thank you. It's obviously a very oppressive environment that you are living in. How did you maintain your intelligence, your intellectual growth?
Thanks. For better or for worse, my parents wanted to make money out of me both legally and illegally. So when I was 8, I had to sign a contract, a false one, just like you hear about, stating that I would become a doctor and give a third of my income for the rest of my life to my parents. So they had me write it as an 8-year-old, filed it away with the Social Security documents and all the important documents. And so my level of education was part of my enslavement. And it wasn't until undergraduate that I learned that I own it. I actually didn't realize that until I was going to drop out of undergrad and was thinking about ending my life. And my counselor at the time said, I don't know if you know this, but when you get that degree, it's yours. It is in your name, not theirs. And I had no idea. And so there is something, I was also abused. I played football. People thought, well, how do you play football and be enslaved? Well, that was also part of my enslavement because my dad really liked a hot prey and they could sell me. So, but there's certain things where on the football field they couldn't touch me. And I got praised by being a really good football star, or I got praised by being really good at school. And it was the only place where I got seen as a good person that I drank that as if I was dying in the desert. So my intellectual development was really the only place where I felt like I owned anything. I would read voraciously as a kid, and for my parents, it looked like I was fulfilling their requirements for my enslavement. So once I learned that my education could actually be mine, then I figured out how to turn it against them. So it's actually, I appreciate the question because that is also why I was struggling with whether or not to continue in academia, because I still struggle with, is it mine or not?
Do we have any more questions?
Throughout all those terrible years, was there anyone who had any awareness of what was happening?
Yes, there were a couple people, but well, I won't make excuses for them. So one teacher, actually several teachers, tried to get me to talk and knew something was going on, but I never said anything directly, so they couldn't do much. But no one really pushed. I remember probably census, my teachers sitting me down and saying, we can't do anything unless you say something. And I sat in their classroom and just cried for hours until they basically just had to let me go because my parents were waiting to pick me up. And I was 11 then, and I didn't know what was going to happen. So, and then in middle or high school, a teacher said to me, well, actually, I didn't find this out till I exited slavery. A teacher told me when I was in high school, I had told her that I had been beaten, but I told her that it stopped. So she didn't report it. And she thought she would stop by my mom's nail salon to check in on me, but she didn't do anything. So again, it's one of those, I guess people saw some signs, but didn't do much or tried to do what they thought was best. But unfortunately, my parents had me so under lockdown that they told me exactly what to say if people asked what was wrong, that my parents were immigrants and struggling, and they're just really strict and having marital problems, because those are okay problems to have, and that I'm just really depressed. So I knew exactly what to say, and it wasn't until a teacher once said, no, that's not the right story, that's not what's going on, that's when I sat and I cried, because I couldn't tell them.
We've probably got time for one more question, if anyone has anything they'd like to ask.
Sorry.
Oh, two more then.
Don't answer this if you don't want to. I'm just wondering if your brother was also enslaved, or whether he was any comfort to you.
My brother was not enslaved in the way that I was. He was quite neglected. He was not any comfort to me. He was forced to be a part of the abuse.
Sorry, you mentioned a friend who was too sort of emotionally involved after you told her what you were going through, and she couldn't cope with it. And I was just thinking how you actually felt at that day when you learned that, because you must have felt dreadfully lonely.
I did, because it was sort of my first friend outside of the recovery environment. So I had other friends who were survivors of child abuse, and I was venturing out. I was trying to be like a normal grad student, but I couldn't, because they were going out and drinking, and I wasn't drinking, and they were doing all these other things that I just couldn't do. So I think it was most painful because she said to me, I know what you're going to say, Min. You're going to say you understand, and you're not going to make me feel bad for that. And for that reason, I feel even worse. And I literally just didn't know what to say. I said, well, I'm not going to force you to be my friend. And so I think what was painful is that she knew how painful it was, and I know she was trying to take care of herself, but I also felt quite desperate for friends. So it was really painful, but it taught me, oh, there are some people who can't handle this. And I've struggled with that, you know. Is it their job to handle it? Is it my job to be more handleable, or easier to be around? I don't know. Certainly all friends have to figure out, I think, all friends have to figure out how to work with each other, right? But yeah, it was difficult. Because I'm still talking about it. Also because I just really, really liked her, and I wanted to be a part of her life.
Okay, are there any last questions, or we can leave it there? Okay. So thank you so much again, Min. Just a couple of things to flag up. Firstly, if you want to get involved with this kind of thing, I'm right in saying that the Survivor Alliance is the place to go. There's volunteer opportunities and ways to donate and all of that kind of stuff to the amazing work that Min is doing. We also, Min has trained all the university staff, so if you're a student, all the university counselling staff, so if you're a student here and you've been affected by this, please do go and speak to them. I can point you in the right direction, but they've all been trained, and I'd really encourage you to do that. If you've also been affected by this and you're not a student, the Salvation Army is probably the best number to call in Nottingham. I have their number and lots of posters and things that you can take away with you. And this evening, we are hosting a film screening at Broadway Cinema in Nottingham. So Melody, the director, is here, and Min's going to be in the panel afterwards as well with a couple of other people. If you would like to come, it's at 8 o'clock, and you can buy a ticket on the Broadway website. I think that's everything.